and at the same time addressing requirements for the future. So just a short of the setup here. We will refer to the different screens with number starting from the left and go to right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. To continue the introduction and to give you the overall context of the exercise itself, I would like to present the exercise director, Major General Anders Brännström, former Chief of Staff, Swedish Army. Sir.
Thank you very much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, very welcome. The next 45 minutes we will focus on Viking. And as you all know, the word Viking can relate to many different things. You could talk about the people up in the northern parts of Europe a little bit more than 1,000 years ago, harassing their neighbors and traveling around in very special ships. You can relate to a ferry line mainly operating in the Baltic Sea, but today we will talk about Viking as a complex for computer-assisted distributed exercises. The Viking exercises are based on a memorandum of understanding between Sweden and USA that was signed in 1999. And it was the same time when NATO had their 50th anniversary. The first Viking was the Viking 99, and that was taking place in the year 1999. And after that, we have had every second or third year, we have had a Viking exercise, 6 of them. And now we are planning for the 7th Viking exercise, that is Viking 18. That will take place in April next year. United Nations, NATO and European Union are important partners, such as the about 90 other organizations taking part in the exercise. And you can see on slide 1 and 4 some of them with their heraldic insignia on the slides. Looking a little bit on the concept for the Viking exercise, you should look at slide 3 over there. And there you could see that we are planning to train 3 different levels in the chains of command. That is the operational level, the tactical level, and the unit level at the same time. And if you look at the slide from left to right, you could see that there are many different operations or missions going on, if you call them that, and a UN-led, a NATO-led, a EU-led, and also the civilian organization working there in there. And also these operations or missions should be coordinated, of course. The Viking 18 is a multinational exercise. It will be about 2,500 participants from 50 countries. And they will be deployed in 9 different sites, 4 in Sweden, 1 in Finland, Ireland, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Brazil. The Viking 18 will also be a multi-dimensional exercise. We will cover things as security, humanitarian assistance, development, political issues, law and order, and many other important things in an international operation. And above all, the Viking 18 is a multifunctional exercise. We put an honor in not only training militaries, or only civilians, or only police, but these 3 categories in the same exercise, so to say. And we try to have the mindset of the so-called comprehensive approach in the exercise. The scenario for the exercise has been updated over the years. Of course, we want to mirror the current crisis over the world and put into the training objectives for the training audience. And the exercise will cover a UN Chapter VII operation, about 6 months after the international community deployed in the poor country of Bogaland that you will hear more about. And before I leave the word to the experts, we have to have in mind that there are two overall objectives that will have to guide us having an exercise like this. The first of them is obvious, of course. That is to get a good training for the training audience, to prepare the women and men for real operations out in the world. And second, also important, to bring nations, organizations, and individuals closer to each other. And that is basically the word partnership that we have heard so many times during this conference. And with those words, once again, very welcome. And I think it's time for me to stop talking and let the experts take us even closer into the Viking. So please.
Thank you, sir. Well, to continue to, in order to follow our demonstration, it's vital of understanding where we have been and where we are heading, the evolution of Viking. So in order to do that, so let me introduce my superior, head of the Swedish Armed Forces Joint Training Center.
The development of the technical platform from the last Viking exercise up to the Viking 2018 is built on lessons identified via capability innovations in different organizations. The work has been conducted by an integrated project team led by the Swedish Armed Forces with representation from the Swedish Procurement Agency, the Swedish Defence Research Agency and industry. There are of course some desired effects of this technical platform. The first one is to cut the time in the exercise controls work. The second one is to support all stages of the training process. The third one is the basic concept that few people train many. The fourth, to distribute without specific simulator software. And the last one, to reuse the system design. As a frame of our demonstration, we will use the military training process, and it consists of 6 phases. The first phase is strategic initiation. That is about decision from strategic level with general directives and guidance. The second phase is design. That is about shaping the overall design, the so-called the concept. The third phase is about to prepare, develop and refine all details to a coordinated executable plan. The fourth phase, the execution itself, called execute, is about coordinate, control, adjust, and in the case of Viking, for 2,500 individuals from approximately 50 countries and 90 organizations on 9 different locations around the world, using multiple simulators and C2 systems. The fifth phase is evaluate. That is the result in different aspects, performance of the trained audience and the exercise as such. And the last phase is about assess. That is understand what lessons you have learned and how to proceed. Finally, a short reflection of the timings regarding the exercise, an exercise like Viking. You can see on the slide that the first phase in the training process started already in September 2015, and the last phase will be ended in August 2018. Thank you.
Thank you, boss. So let's move into the first phase and start our demonstration. So, first phase, strategic initiation. This phase sets all necessary preconditions to start a planning process. In the Viking exercise contest, as you heard before, Swedish MOD and US DoD have signed a MOU declaring the overall purpose and the desired end state of the exercise. So using that MOU, a bilateral strategic planning group established the overall guidance to initiate the 2 most important processes in this phase. The first one is the scheduling, such as who, when, where, why, what, fundings, and secondly, the technical agreements that has to be set with all the different nations and organizations involved in the exercise. So let's move into phase 2, the design of the exercise. So, key challenges during all phases are accessibility to relevant information. So the first thing we have done is to set up a web portal accessible from all remote sites involved in the exercise, where planners could store general information and at the same time use special modules of our exercise management system. From the same place, you could also access our e-learning site. Those are represented on screen 2 and 3 right now. So this makes it possible for collaborative work and the start of the design process. So jumping into that, and the process is 1 and 4. The design process itself consists of 4 elements that has to be shaped and coordinated. The conceptual scenario, the organization, the technical design, and the concept of training. The ones we're going to focus on are conceptual scenario and the technical design. So the conceptual scenario itself, the simulated environment and the society if you want, we have some tools to manage it, but there are still things to be improved. What we need, seriously, is a tool that can manage the theater. So now represented in screen 2 via the C2 system we use, all the geographical information you have to deal with, and other important factors like climate and so forth. The secondly, the conflict itself, the history, political, religious environment, all those things has to be set. For us, we use what we call the country handbook, 120 pages thick, in order to describe all things. Thirdly, all actors and entities that have to be represented in the exercise, like non-state armed actors, military, civilian, relations and interdependence between them, that has to be managed. What we have right now is what you can see on screen 2, scenario information manager, which is used to keep track on all the relations and interdependence. So what we need is an extension of that system added with, together, combined with your special tools, an Orbit editor, and an editor which could set all necessary attributes on all actors and entities. And of course, it has to be remotely accessible from all sites. In summary, what we want is a tool for creating the conceptual scenario and managing all ingredients. Maybe you can call it the scenario information and data manager. So switching off to the technical design, Captain Peter Lindskog, welcome.
Thank you. So, the Viking exercise is a fully distributed exercise where we have all these 19 nations, 90 organizations spread out over all these 8 sites. And we have our joint exercise center station in Enköping in Sweden at the joint training center. It's also there we have our Viking data center. We distribute the core service of Viking through a secured network through internet. And when we are conducting this kind of exercise, we have a couple of considerations to handle. One of these are time zones, different time zones. Something is also about the maturity of training for the organizations and the aspects for different kind of training. We handle lots of civilian organizations and military organizations together. And also a big issue to handle standards. What standards can we use and what standard can every organization access? On the picture on screen number 3, we can see that we have 2 organizations. We have first of all the trained staffs, and they are in their normal environment. So they handle their normal systems like their common command and control system for achieve a situational picture. And we have collaboration system, communication system, social media, and so forth. And a key aspect when we train is to support the train as you fight concept. So that is really important for us to achieve that support. On the right-hand side, the other organization is the exercise control, and they are organized. That's the guy who's handling the game. So they have a management system for all play cards, and also a simulator system to provide the synthetic environment. So we have about 2,000 people in the train staffs and about 500 in the XCOM. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. So, let's move into phase 3, the preparation of the exercise. So, as you can see on the slides, this is a very intense phase with parallel processes, and we have not the time to dig into all of them, so I'll just briefly explain the sub-process itself and highlight some challenges in those processes. Starting up from the top, the first thing we need to do is to create the operational scenario, ending up with a military operational plan. That plan will then be uploaded to the planning portal on the web in order to let the trained staff look at the plan and prepare themselves before they enter the exercise itself. Secondly, we need to create a game plan with all the main events related to that old plan, and in order to meet the training objectives of the exercise. From these incidents, we produce injects in our exercise management system. The system is called Training Exercise Manager. You can see that, guys, need to switch. Great, thank you. This allowed us to work distributed and in parallel from all sides, creating an overall mill plan, a game plan. This has slightly been improved, and we will demonstrate that in phase 4. So, going to preparation of actors and entities. So it's about setting all attributes such as doctrinal behavior, holdings, and other characteristics for all entities and actors which are going to be simulated. This is seriously time-consuming work due to the fact that we need to prepare each C2 system and the simulators separately. So coming back to our challenge we presented in phase 2, what we seriously lack is a scenario information and data manager, which could be used to feed all those systems. Okay, the last process is the technical integration. This includes test implementation of the system on each site. What we have identified challenges is, in summary, is about integration, IT security, bandwidth issues, and of course all that, that comes with logistics. So Peter, tell us more about it.
So, we are following the Distributed Simulation Engineer and Execution process, the DSEEP, and the first step to clearly state the goals and for the Federation began in October 2015. And we are now in a phase of integration and testings, and we still have 3 more integration events before we execute the exercise in April. And the results of this process, you can see that on screen number 3. And you can see that we have 5 simulators in the Federation, 5 simulators at the exercise, and only 4 at the Federation. We have JCATS. JCATS is a standalone system, and they also use that as a command and control tool. So a specific command and control, we have 2 of them, ICC and in Sidaware headquarters. And we also have X and out mill manager systems. And we have another supporting service that I will talk more about later. And all of the Federation is based on a NATO standard HLA. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So we are moving into the next phase, phase 4, the execution. And during this phase, we will try to demonstrate the proof of concept that has been developed for the exercise itself. So continue, Peter.
Thank you. So, as the general said, the scenario is in Northern Europe, in the Baltic Sea region, and we call the scenario North Friendly Sea. And we work in a fictitious land, Bogaland. And this exercise, if we could compare it with the real operation, it should be include about 100,000 soldiers. So it's a really major crisis response operation. So the exercise control will handle concurrently about 4,000 aggregated units, about 500 platforms, and additional 2,000 civilian surface vessels. And we also have about 40 factions and the parties at the scenario. So the relationship between these parties are really complex. So if we look into more specific what the simulator is doing, and since we have the scenario contains many players, and since participating organizations bring their own training systems, the federated system approach has proved to be a successful architecture. So each simulator, as a constructive simulator, is allocated modeling responsibility based on its capabilities. First of all, we have TYR. TYR is a joint aggregated simulator controlling most of the units on land and sea. We have the NATO's ITSEC. It controls the majority of aircrafts. And the Combater, it's a model simulation based on MASA sword simulation, and it's responsible for one UN brigade. We have VR forces who handle some land and sea traffic. And we also have a vessel traffic generator, also based on VR forces. It generates civilian sea traffic to produce a more realistic marine picture for the marine staff. This is a modeling and simulation as a service, MSAS, container developed and composed by the Netherlands Organization for Applied Scientific Research, TNO. Actors is a simulator that is used to provide support for aggregation of platforms into units. So, now let us visit the area in Bogaland and perform some demonstrations. Okay, in this demonstration we will show you 3 new XCON automation services that we will be explored during the Viking 18. These services has been designed to reduce the workload of response cells. These 3 services are available on demand. They are system independent. They are modular and interchangeable. They are developed in the spirit of MSAS concept. On the screen to the left, the second screen, you can see exercise control operational picture, SIT-aware. And on the screen number 3, you can see the federated view of simulation ground truth of all simulated platforms and units in a common simulation graphical user interface. And this is also a control tool for simulation systems, for multiple simulation systems. Okay, now we will start and look at the first services. And we highlight the service on the screen to the left there. So we will now show you how we can automatically start a new incident from our exercise management system. So the incident is triggered when a certain condition in the Federation is met. And in this vignette, a battalion advanced towards support with the purpose to embark on ships. The battalion units are simulated in a training system Combater, and this training is running live from Brazil. So hey, say hi to Brazil. Yeah, she's... All right. So this unit is advancing towards support. So a pre-planned incident has been scheduled by the XCOM planning team to be triggered when the approaching battalion gets close to the harbor. And you can see the line when the trigger line is in the SIT-aware application, and you can see that already one unit has passed this trigger line. So to enable this, the incident and its condition has been designed in the Exonaut system provided by 4C Strategies. The incident includes a definition of the trigger, and in this case we use the geofence. We can also use the detonation on the Federation as a trigger. And it also includes an inject loaded with scripted intelligence report and scripted simulation instruction, and also instruction for the response cells. So, several things happens now when the battalion crosses the line. So, the response cell is alerted by that this incident now has happened by this common graphical user interface on the right-hand side there. And you can see in the message box there, that's the way the operator is alerted that this incident has started. And the simulation instructions are sent directly now to the simulator who should be responsible for a specific unit. And also we have an intelligence report has been sent to the response cell, also with a link to a video. And you can see the insurgents movement in both SITAware and on the common graphical user interface. And the video that has been created in VBS3 shows their activity on screen number 1. So this video is then, in the instruction for the response cell, tells them to post this video on the Viking World Web and on the social media that we call Facebook. And we will then tell the brigade staff that the video is published on Facebook, and they will look into this video and then take action. That's the way that we have injected a new incident. So that ends this first step, and let's get over to the next one. So now we show how we can control several simulators from one tool, from one graphical user interface. And for that, we use the NATO Standard 4800 Low-Level Battle Management Language, LBML. So one of the previous triggered action from the Exonaut system is also ordered by LBML. So on screen number 3, you can see when we control the TYR simulator from this graphical tool, and he just right-click on the unit and gives the order. And we can also control the other force from VR forces, and he gives the order. As you can understand, the operator only has to learn one graphical user interface. He don't have to learn VR forces and TYR and so on. He just have to learn one tool, and that's really beneficial. Okay, let's go to service number 3. And this service is about how we can automate intelligence reports. So we need to support the response cell in their production of intelligence reports. And we would like to use the Federation available on the Federation. And these reports should be realistic and of good quality to unburden the response cells. So the generated messages should be perceived if a subordinated unit has sent them, and the trained staff should not know that the machine generates most of its content. So when the insurgents enter the sensor area, a recon platoon unit has spotted them, and the simulated TYR is producing a report and publish the sensor back to the Federation. The report pump developed by the Swedish Defence Research Agency, FOI, uses this information collected from the Federation together with information from the Bogaland handbook or a Bogastar, combine this information and make the report with high fidelity and better quality of the intelligence report. These intelligence reports are then sent back to the Federation so the CAX operator can see that the new report has been produced. And you can see that on screen number 3. A sensor detects suspicious unit. The report library is expanded, and the response cell can use these reports as the basis for its reporting to its brigade staff. We can now see how the report service has created a number of reports based on available information from the Federation. And the basic value, if we open one report here, so the basic values are then formatted to correspond to a NATO standard message format, in this case APP11. And the report shows how the knowledge database is used to describe the discovery in terms of location, direction, closest village, signs, description of weapons and vehicles type, and so forth. In the report, you can also observe the formulation under the chapter Assessment, where it expresses an assessment of which unit that has been discovered. The computer makes these assessments. The response will then complement the information to this report and then send it to the training audience, to the trained staff. So that concludes the 3 new services that we were going to conduct during the Viking exercise. And we will try to prove this as a concept during a concept development and evaluation event during the exercise. So we will be happy to in more detail demonstrate these 3 services in our Viking booth 2161. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. We are still in phase 4, and of course, during all executions, it's absolutely necessary to evaluate the trained staff's performance. So I will therefore hand over to Mr. Johan Malmenbrot to tell us more about it.
Thank you. So, the performance during the exercise is assessed and evaluated in 3 parallel processes. One of them is the trained staff assessing their own performance against events and incidents during the exercise. As displayed now on screen 2, the trained audience can receive a current status on their performance against each training objective. The second process is the observer trackers assessing the trained audience performance against their training objective. They can use X-Note dashboard, now presented on screen 3, the daily progression view, to review the progression on a day-to-day basis. This provides the ability to affect and direct the exercise game plan in order to achieve more effective training. The third process is the exercise evaluation. They evaluate how well the exercise meets the exercise objectives, and they can use Exonaut to keep track on their workload, areas of interest, or the current status. And the product from all these processes all feeds into the first impression report, which then concludes the execution phase. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Johan. So what we're going to do right now is to jump into phase 5, post-exercise evaluation, and Mr. Ofjenestam will then move on into the last phase, phase 6. So here you go.
Thank you, Uwe. In the 5th phase, we are taking care of the results of the first impression report. And by the way, one of the fixes we have made through Viking is to make sure that these first impressions are really reaching the training audience and the exercise control, so they immediately can get something, kind of a product of the lessons identified during the exercise in their hands when they are moving out the very last day of the exercise. So what they get is a first impression report draft that they can bring with them back home immediately when the exercise ends. And that's made by automation through the systems we just got presented. So it's one way of fixing a requirement. So of course, from the exercise we do analysis, and we are using regular evaluation analysis. We have a post-exercise discussion with the key personnel of the exercise planning and training audience. And we also try to create a number of recommendations for the short term and the long term of our exercise and training concepts. And all this is put together into a final exercise report. And we can use the different systems to make this happen and do the analysis. So slide, please. So from the phase 6, we are trying really in a way, based upon our experiences and the lessons identified, to identify requirements for the future. And one of the ways of doing this is to identify the requirements through the recommendations I just mentioned, and then address the capability gaps and the challenges to industry and to our industry in the interoperability development. Using partners, NATO is one. US, as you have heard, is also one of our agencies or nations to deal with the future innovations. So one of the initiatives coming out of our US collaboration is to find something that is lightweight for combined operations training, and a solution for the future might be that we can find a platform for more lightweight systems and interoperability. So I will give you just a few examples of potential proof of concepts or prototypes for cyber, from training we call it the communication information system branch, up to bringing in cyber as a courses of action environment for a training audience. Modeling and simulation as a service has been mentioned to get more of a service-oriented solution. Could also be an LCOT solution in the future. Next. To bring in the interoperability in between command and control systems and simulation is another NATO initiative, which also is making one of these fixes that we are requiring for the future, to bring the systems more together and have a stimulation automated by the training systems into the command and control for the training audience. And last but not least, we have also bringing in some thoughts and fixes about data exchange analysis to make that kind of interoperability more efficient. Finally, we have two proof of concepts that I would like to hand over. So can we have the first related to LCOTS, the video clip to come up, and I would like to hand over to John to present his proof of concept.
Thank you. This is a tool suite that we developed. It's a tool suite that we developed. What you'll see in the course of this video is a suite of tools. They are all service-oriented architecture built. They are cloud-enabled, although a cloud is not necessarily required. They are lightweight. They're based on open standards and source. This is a rapid terrain generation tool. We have coverage of the entire Earth, so you'll see that it's very simple to develop the terrain. Took about 17 seconds. This set of tools: scenario development, lightweight, easy to use, drill back into the same place where we just generated the terrain. And you'll see the force laydown, and this is all HTML5, no plugins required, running in a browser. And you can see that how the force laydown is done and how the plan laydown is done. Very easy to learn, very easy to use. They're all open standards and open source. We support maritime, air, land, all the domains. This is a 3D visualization of the same terrain we just generated in 17 some odd seconds. And this is the interface used to control the simulations underneath during the exercise. So you'll see people moving around, you can see the vehicles, and you'll see the GUIs pulled down and commands given. This is the after action review tool, so you can drill in and see the reports. You got the 2D view, you can also access the 3D view. And all these exist today. So they're designed to be simulation agnostic, and as was alluded to earlier, one interface, and that's all you need to know. Thank you, I'm John Stevens.
Thank you, John. We would like to also give you a proof of concept from our NATO partner, and in this case it's the Center of Maritime Research and Experimentation from Italy, and I would like to introduce Alberto Tremuri.
Thank you, Ulf. Yeah, while they are connecting the screen, just a few background information. This project, this demonstration we are going to show is part of the ACT course in 2020 project. The aim of the project is to collect requirements to enhance the future NATO training environment. To support the concept, we developed a set of prototypes this year, and we are going to show one of them. In this simulator, we recreate the population of the Viking exercise scenario. So we have the population of Bogaland. If you go back to the input, please. Yeah, this is the maps and the input area. We already preloaded a scenario where we create a critical situation conditions for the population of the island. So when we start the simulation, and also we speed up the simulation time, we can see from the two curves, the yellow and the red one are the population of the island that are leaving the island, while the population of the mainland is the pink curve, is increasing rapidly. We have also other side effects from this crisis, such as, for instance, the increase of illegal activities that is increasing after the say, injection of the crisis. This is a sample of a simulator that could be included in the future NATO training environment and in the in the future Viking edition.
So thank you, Alberto, and this concludes phase 6, but you realize that there are always lessons identified of different requirements that comes out from our training process in Viking and NATO efforts. So over to you, Ove.
Thank you, Ulf. Okay, for the final remarks, I will leave the floor again to the exercise director.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to us. And I know that you have dramatically increased your level of knowledge for the Viking. And I know that you now know that there will be a Viking 18 conducted next April. But what we don't know is the step after that. And that's where I want to invite you in coming discussions and questions and suggestions. And as we told you, we will have personnel in the booth 2161 and looking at what's coming after Viking 18. We don't know exactly the technique and what it would be, but it will be about prepare women and men to go into real operations. It will be about partnership, and it will be about comprehensive approach. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I hereby close this session.